Yeah, I'm good to go. I
All
got
right.
coffee in hand, headphones on. I'm ready.
Too early for a beer, is it?
Oh, look, if I didn't have anything else to do today, do
Yeah.
you know actually what I started doing
Mm.
is I've got about 2 acres that I have to mow now, and obviously in summer it goes ape shit.
Mm.
Um, and I started drinking while I mow, which
Yeah.
is really like I didn't think this was going to be a thing. The guy who sold me the ride on was like, mate, you need to like get your shit together, because I went in there, I had to get something repaired. He's like, and I was telling him like how much fun I'm having mowing the lawn. And he
Mm.
was like, "Have you started drinking while you do it yet?" And I was like, "No, I haven't." But oh my god, this is a revelation. So I took out a bottle of scotch yesterday and got plastered and hit a rock and broke one of the blades. And now it's back in the shop getting repaired.
That guy is the best mower salesman I've ever heard of. He probably fitted the drink holder there for you as well.
It comes with a drink holder. Standard, mate. Drink holder standard.
You need a John Deere hat now, like to complete the Forrest Gump look. Oh, good. All right. Now that I've got you warmed up with with your fantastic conversation there, I am ready to kick it off. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Well, something a little bit different today at Noob Spearo community. I've got Adam Stern here with Q&A from the community. All the questions that got asked through the Noob Spearo community group on Facebook and Instagram. I've got them here, as well as half a dozen patrons who were able to turn up as well. I'm going to have a deep dive with those guys at the end of the Q&A with Adam. But it's awesome to have you with me again, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Pleasure. My favorite podcast.
Really?
Well, I don't listen to any other podcasts.
Oh. I've listened to you on the Freedive Cafe podcast.
You know what? Okay, the Freedive Cafe podcast I think is great, but I haven't actually listened to it yet, to be absolutely honest with you.
Donnie's got a good show there, and he's got a new one out now too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I was again on I was the most recent podcast I put out, I think yesterday or something like that. But I to be honest with you, I haven't actually listened to the episodes, but like everyone raves about it, and I know that they're great. Because anyway.
Oh, good. It's a good show. I like it too. He's had a couple of really good guests, including yourself. So it's great to have you back. I heard a rumor the other day that your middle name is actually Ignatius, and you've changed it to Freediver to try and like just hide from that. Is that real?
My middle name is Thomas.
Okay.
But mate, I reckon if my middle name was Ignatius, I would rep that, eh?
Yeah.
I'd be Adam Iggy Stern, wouldn't I?
You would. I think it's pretty cool too, especially when you make it Iggy.
Yeah.
Let's hook into some questions. Ben asks, he wants to know why you're so happy and enthusiastic all the time. He loves your energy.
Ben, I don't have a job. So look, I wake up in the morning and I think to myself, oh, what am I going to do today? Oh, should I go shoot a YouTube video? What does that involve? It involves going out the boat, going somewhere fun. Should I, I don't know, make some photos for Instagram? Like, should I hang out? Should I go for a spear? Like that, that is the extent of my day. Before COVID, I was like really like, I suppose like training, I suppose maybe like about 5 hours a day would be taken up by training.
Mm-hmm.
And I've pulled back on that now because I legitimately have no idea when I'll be able to actually compete again. So right now I'm maintaining but not improving, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I think that I am happy and I've got so much energy because I'm not using that energy going to work. That's the truth. I am a very, very lucky person.
But surely, like the rest of us, you have flat days. You have days where you're not into it. Does that happen to you?
For sure. But this is the thing, right? Like, this is why, when people ask me about like, do you spear? Do you do this? Do that? And my answer is like, I do everything, because there are days when I don't want to go spearing. There are days when I don't want to take photos. There are days where I don't want to train. There are days when I don't want to dive. But there's always something in the ocean or around the ocean that I want to do, if that makes sense. Because I try to cover all the bases. And so like Mate, sometimes I go for a scuba dive.
Yeah, nice.
I have fun. So
Yeah,
you just got to do it all, and then it keeps everything fresh.
Yeah, cool. All right, I like that answer. Cool. Dale Bartosh, a different sort of question here. He wants to know what you think about in free fall, not what you teach people to do, not what you tell other people to do, but what you actually do, what you think and feel about when you're you've stopped your kicking phase and you're just in free fall.
Okay, so this has changed as the years have gone on, right? So what I used to have to do personally was I used to have to keep my mind active, right? So I used to, let's say, let's just break it up over like I don't know. I suppose I always say like 100-meter dive because it's a round number, right? With a long free fall on it or whatever. So, for 100-meter dive, you stop finning at probably about 30 odd meters. You've got 70 meters to think about life as you descend. And I used to keep my brain really active. I used to think about, okay, I'm equalizing. I'm using this equalization technique, make it like keeping my mind really present on the technique. And then periodically I would scan my body to make sure I was totally relaxed. And then obviously, there is a fair bit involved in free falling. Like, you got to keep yourself a certain distance to the line so you're not just like waving all over the shop. So I used to keep my mind very active. And then what I found was that as time went on, the more dives I did where I was free falling for like a reasonably long period of time, I was able, my brain was able to just bridge the time. And what I mean by that is, so let's say you start a new job, right? You wake up in the morning and you've got a 30-minute commute to work. The first week you do that commute, it's 30 minutes of driving, right? You're present for it all. 2 years down the line, you wake up in the morning, you hop in the car, you blink, and you're at work. You know what I mean? How you just zone out, and then all of a sudden you're there. And it just comes from doing the exact same thing again and again and again. Your brain tends to just bridge the time in between, and so that's what happens now. When you do it for long enough, you will start your free fall. You'll start thinking about your equalization. You'll be focused, and then honestly, before you even know what's going on, you'll be like, oh wow, I'm at the bottom. And because I think that if your brain didn't have the ability to do that, you'd see a lot more people freaking out on their descent.
Yeah. I've got a few related questions to this. Like, I remember in the first interview I did with you, you said that, a lot of people say freediving is 100% mental, but you were like, I don't agree with that at all. I don't think it's such a mental task at all. With limitations, though, a lot of limitations in every sphere of life seem to be self-imposed. It seems to be the ideas and the attitudes that you have inside kind of shapes your world and your abilities and the things you're able to think and do. What's your take on that with regards specifically to freediving?
Oh, mate, yes, I agree with everything you just described. Like you will completely impose your ability upon yourself. And it happens in really, really weird ways. And I hope I can think of a really good example for this because it deserves a good example. It deserves a proper explanation. If you don't believe that you are a certain kind of diver, like let's say, all right, I'll tell you what. I'm doing an instructor course next month with a bunch of guys from spearing clubs around Australia, and it's a spearing thing. Try to get more freediving instructors in all the spearing clubs. So now all these guys, I suppose, like they're not your typical people that come to a freediving course. They're rougher around the edges. They've got less formal education, and I'm sitting here telling them like, hey guys, on the course, if you don't hit 40 meters, you go home not as an instructor. Now most spearos, I think, don't think of themselves as deep divers, or they don't think of themselves as people that can drop down a line down to 40 odd meters. And so, a lot of the work that I'm doing with them is about changing their mentality so that they actually start to believe that they can do these dives. Because if they turn up and they don't believe that they can do it, their brain will find reasons to make them bail on dives. They will be going down, and all of a sudden their equalization will get stuffed. Like a person who believes they can do something when it comes to the crux, their brain will like effectively push through it, find a solution. If they don't believe they can do it, when they come down to a challenge, that person will cave and say, well, look, I don't think I can do it. Like, why? And their brain is not going to find the solution. And it happens at every stage in a person's diving. Either there are people that are stuck at depths, all over the shop, from 10 meters to 100 meters. And they can't go deeper because they don't think of themselves as the type of person that can do it. They don't think of themselves as that kind of a diver, that kind of a person. And you totally place those limits upon yourself. And you'll always meet the expectations you set for yourself. That's the truth.
I was listening to this guy talk the other day, and he was talking about like the voice that you have inside yourself that you talk to yourself with is the most important voice in your life. Even if Adam Stern is standing here and he's coaching me through a dive, what you say isn't as important to me as what I say to myself about what you've just said to me. And I think, so is your job, a lot of it, training people's inner voice to help them, become a walking, talking, self-fulfilled prophecy that, but operating at a level greater than they originally expected of themselves?
Mate, I'm a hand holder. I hold your hand and you do what you can do. I just spilled coffee all over myself. That's why I was like looking down like fucking. I was like, you were talking, and I was getting ready to say something. I was like, oh, there's a cup in my hand, and then it's all over my lap.
Lucky you've got that background in theatre though, so you just ad hoc and ad libbed and got yourself out of it.
You had no idea what was going on, and a scolding ball sack, and you're like,
that's the title of this episode, Adam Stern's Scolding Ball Sack. So we're going to go with that.
But yeah, no, honestly, I can only do so much. If a person doesn't believe that they can do it, if they don't genuinely want to do it, because this is another funny thing. Some people, they come to you and they say, hey, I want to do these dives. I want to train. I want to get better. But they don't really want to do it.
Okay.
That makes sense. Because in order for them to like if you say, hey, Adam, I want to do this dive, which is a totally different dive than what you might be able to do now. Let's just say, you want to do a 40-odd meter dive. Like you have to change who you are as a diver to do that. And if people aren't willing to be like, I'm going to dramatically change everything about my diving, they will never get there. So maybe I should rephrase that and say that people aren't aware of what is required sometimes to get better. And then they come along, they say, oh, I want to do this, but they're not willing to do the work, or they're not willing to make the transition.
Okay, cool. I think that might be a theme for this episode. I don't know. I've got heaps of questions here, so I'm conscious of time. I've sort of divided the questions into a few different areas, and I've gone through them. So I've got training and breath hold questions. Then I've got some equalizing questions. Then I've got a bunch of deeper freedive spearfishing type questions. And then I've got another section that I'm calling other questions, which some of them are funny. You'll enjoy all of them, I'm sure.
Oh, good.
So we'll start with training and breath hold questions. So Ethan says, would you say going out spearfishing is going to make you become a better diver? Or, sorry, okay, hang on. I thought I rewrote this question. I didn't do it very well. In order to become a better diver, are you better off going out spearfishing more or doing some freedive training in the pool?
Oh, look, both. But if I could choose just one thing to do, it would be going diving. Now, in saying that, this is the tricky thing here, and this is where training, I suppose, has a real purpose. In order to get better, in many ways, you need to, I suppose, stress the body to a certain level that it makes an adaptation, right? So, yeah, okay, I tell you what I started doing this year. I thought to myself, hey, I'm not going to be able to dive for a while, compete for a while. And when I went spearing, I just did really big dives, like with the spear. I just go down and shoot a mowong at 20 meters and sit there for a few minutes. You know what I mean? Dives you don't need to do for the fish you're getting.
Yeah.
And for me, that was a part of my training anyway. But this is where training has a place though, because it's not safe to do that. At least like when I do it, or when I did it, I was with people who were very, very competent divers, very, very knowledgeable Spearos as well, who are like, if they see me unconscious at 20 meters, they can come and pick me up. And it's not a drama. For most of us, we're not training or we're not diving with those people. So because it's not really safe to effectively stress the body while spearing, we have to then like allocate that to a separate, I suppose, set of circumstances, which is training in the pool. So that's why we have pool training. We train hard in the pool, then we dive easy. In an ideal world, if you have all the right people around you, then you can do, I suppose, bigger dives. But I really wouldn't recommend it, because as you know, like spearing is it's a totally like everything in freediving and in your pool training and all that kind of jazz, it's planned. You're like, I'm going to swim this distance and nothing's going to get in my way, right? There's no impediment going on here. Like you go spearing, you go down, you're like, oh, what am I going to see down here? What am I going to shoot? If I shoot this thing, can it drown me? How big is it? Is my shaft going to get stuck somewhere? Like, you know what I'm trying to say? Like there's everything is.
Am I going to run into a whale on the way up?
Am I going to run into, oh mate, that happened. Well, that happened to me once.
I seen you high five one once.
Not officially, all right? I never officially high-fived a whale.
Is that against the whale engagement strategy rules that the UN has charted?
Yes, of course. And you know that I abide by all rules. But one time I was coming up from a dive on the Barrier Reef, and I was coming up, and there was a whale shark literally directly overhead. Scared the shit out of me. Like, you look up, like, what's this huge thing? So you never know what's gonna be floating around the ocean.
Now you know how my dive buddies feel. They're just like little cobias nestling in underneath.
Yeah. So I think I ranted and raved there for a little bit, but in short, we train harder in the pool because it's a safe environment to stress the body to make an adaptation to get better, and then we dive easy. In an ideal world, we could train the body in both circumstances, but it's just not safe to be doing dives that stress the body while spearing, because there's too many variables going on. There's too many opportunities for something to go wrong.
Cool. All right. I just want to go back to that thread too. So in order to become a deeper and longer freedive Spearo, we need to first be able to believe that we can do it. Then the second part is we need to be willing to change in order to make those improvements. And then the third thing you're sort of saying is that we need to apply stress in a controlled environment in order to achieve those results.
Mate, this sounds like a self-help book.
We're working to a thread here. I really feel like there's this logical sequence going on. And it's accidental, but who knows? We could be cleverer than we think, but probably not.
No, I like how your brain works. That's a neat, tidy progression there.
All right, cool. A lot of the questions I've got are around depth. Training in the pool, you're training on a horizontal plane under near to surface atmospheric conditions, so we're not getting the pressure changes on our body that we need to acclimatize to depth. I've got heaps of questions about that. What can we achieve in the pool?
Basically every physiological change except for a depth adaptation. So you can train your body to, I suppose, hold its breath longer without experiencing urge to breathe. You can train your body to increase its hypoxic threshold, so you can go for longer without passing out. You can train your body to work better anaerobically. You can train your body to use lactate or lactic acid in the body better as a fuel source. You can train everything except for how comfortable do I feel at this depth? And that's something that you just apply later. And that's the same also for me. I can't dive deep all year round. I get all of my breath holding fitness and breath holding capacity up in the pool, and then you apply all that to your depth. And if you have all of those ducks in a row, those deep dives feel like nothing. You know what I mean? And you're not even really going to be sitting there going like, oh, I can't handle this pressure. Because the truth is that when someone says that they can't handle the pressure, it's got very little to do with the pressure. So we don't have any nerve endings in our lungs. So we don't feel contracting or expanding lungs. What we feel is our resistance to that. So we feel if we are tense in our body and we're not allowing the pressure of the water to, I suppose, like, you know, make our lungs smaller or make everything around it smaller, we resist it, and then we feel the pressure against all the muscles that surround our lungs. And that comes for either in someone's head, but most of the time it comes because the person isn't comfortable with all their breath holding capacity at the depth that they're going. But if you feel like a beast, I mean, the depth you go to, it can be kind of irrelevant as to, like, you know, oh, can I handle this pressure? Like, what's going on with this pressure here?
Is blood shift a trained response? I mean,
yes.
Okay, so can you explain blood shift and does it increase with increased training and acclimatization to depth?
100%. So what I was saying before, let's just say that's, you know, I suppose to a depth of around maybe 30 odd meters. And then obviously we start going deeper than that, and things start to change a little bit, because then we have to factor in some extra elements to the depth. So blood shift is, this is the real short explanation of it. As your lungs are compressing, like I suppose a level of suction is being created in the lungs. And as we're going down, because we have like more, I suppose we have all the blood from our extremities is pulled around our organs. The blood vessels in the lungs, they bloat or they expand, and they draw in, or like with the suction, blood plasma is sucked in to bloat the blood vessels in the lungs. And then that's how the lungs maintain their shape as we're going down. The gas in the lungs is still compressing, and then where the gas is compressing, the space is being taken up by blood plasma. Now, I think in the textbook, it says like, oh, you know, this happens once the diver reaches their residual volume, but this actually happens from the beginning. A person diving to 10 meters experiences some kind of a blood shift to help cushion the lungs from pressure. It's obviously very minor compared to what happens when a diver goes deeper than 40 odd meters, right? Because the lungs themselves cannot shrink below what's called the residual volume, which is usually around 1/5 of the total lung capacity. So we hit that when we get to about 40 meters. And then at 40 meters, then a lot of blood plasma has to go in to maintain the shape and the integrity of the lungs. But it happens to all divers at all depths, just to a lesser extent. And obviously, the more you dive to those depths, the better your body gets at bloating the blood vessels. And then as you're coming up, for all the blood coming back out again. So it's very much a trained response. And, you know, the reason why, in freediving, we'll often talk about this being like a big consideration at 40 meters. In spearfishing, I think this is a much bigger consideration shallower, like, you know, even I'd go as far as say from 25 meters and beyond, because of the amount of physical work that a person tends to be doing underwater when spearing, whether you're digging a shaft out of a cave or whether you're swimming a fish up, you know what I mean, right? Like there's often some more aggressive movement.
Well, you're swimming up and you're just holding tension on a reel. To make sure it doesn't make it into a cave, you know, like you just you're just giving it enough to hold it out. It is exertion wherever you are, though. I hear what you're saying.
Totally.
Cool. All right, Damien asks, what are some of the best exercises to get more depth and bottom time?
Okay,
that's two different questions, really, but
and it's actually a very long response, to be absolutely honest with you. Okay, but if we were to simplify things, the very best way to get more bottom time is, and this depends on the diver, but like let's say a beginner diver, or like, you know, a beginner to intermediate. The best way to get more bottom time is to use less energy to get down. So to actually spend some time improving your technique, right? So like the ideal dive should look like this, right? You're on the surface hanging out, you take a breath, you do a duck dive. And that duck dive should be good enough that it gets you anywhere from 3 to 5 meters depth just on the duck dive. You fin 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and then you're deep enough to start your free fall. And that's it. That's all the movement required to get you to whatever depth you eventually get to. The rest of it, you just sink. So improving technique is probably the fastest way to get more bottom time. And then besides that, increasing your actual breath holding capacity, which we know is best and safest done in the pool. As far as depth goes, improving depth, the best way to do that is in a controlled environment, by which I mean diving on a line, usually with someone who knows their shit. And I don't mean to say like, I'm not the kind of person that believes everyone needs to take a freediving course. Everyone needs to go and train with a freediving instructor. Obviously, I would love more money for my fellow freediving instructors and for the freediving industry. I will never begrudge that, right? But I can't in good conscience say like, oh yeah, everyone needs to do it, right? Some people just don't bloody need to. Some people just don't learn well in that environment. That's not, it's just not for everyone. It's you know what I mean? Different horses for courses, or whatever the saying is, you know? But the best way to progress in depth is to train in a controlled environment. So a controlled environment for depth is a buoy, a line, a weight at the bottom. So you got a straight rope going up and down. The rope is measured, you know exactly how deep it is, and you practice going down, and you have the appropriate safety for that environment as well. So you might have friends that are experienced enough that you feel comfortable doing that with them. There are freediving clubs that go out and do that kind of thing, or you can, you know, have a chat to an instructor and go out with an instructor. Many different ways to do it, but that's the best way to progress depth for sure.
There's some old like wisdom that says like, you know, it should be 1 meter per year of age on diving and stuff, and I don't know that it does us any favors, this idea. What I think they're trying to do by having this saying is just encourage people to get used to the idea that training and learning to spearfish at depth is very much a gradual progression. What are your thoughts on this?
Very much. I mean, look, I think a meter per year is very conservative, which is not a bad thing, right? Like, it's not a bad thing to be a conservative diver. I think a person can safely progress faster than that. But once again, like, okay, let's say, like, back to our previous example of going diving on a line. You do a 20-meter dive on a line, you're not going to go spearing at 20 meters, right? Like, mate, going spearing at 20 meters and doing a line dive to 20 meters, totally different things. Like, I usually tell people to cut it in half. You know, the only reason, like, the only reason why it's good to do a line dive is just to get the person adapted and comfortable with the depth itself, and then probably more importantly with the idea of the depth, so they're not down there and it doesn't freak them out. But obviously, because spearfishing is probably the most dangerous form of breath hold diving, only because of the amount of variables involved, right? We're hunting underwater. Then yeah, I do think we need to be more conservative, but I do think 1 meter per year is a bit slow. Like, I don't know. I think everyone's different. If I dive more than you do in a year, should I be able to go deeper? Like, right? Like, you meet kids these days, they're like 18 years old. They started bloody spearing 6 months ago, and they're comfortable, like actually comfortable spearing fish at 20 odd meters. But you know, these kids go spearing every second day. They've got the time for it. So it's just, you know what I mean? It's, we can't make hard and fast rules, can we?
No. But I mean, some of these sayings have use, but I'm more about, you know, giving people the principles or the, you know, the ideas that people are trying to teach underneath them, you know, like, obviously we're trying to encourage gradual progression, you know, based on, you know, like, if you're in a controlled environment, it changes things too. Like, if you're with an instructor, Cole Pickford says, if you had to choose between dynamic pull training and static, which would you choose?
Ooh, baby. No, you got to have both. You can't have favorites with your kids, all right? You got to love them both. Okay, so let's talk about where they're used. Static breath hold has two main, I suppose, applications. Now, just keep in mind, the most important thing when it comes to training static breath hold is that you never have a bad experience. So this is this funny thing. People get into it and they're like, oh, you know, I did some tables for a month and I held my breath for 5 minutes. Doesn't mean shit. It doesn't change or improve who you are as a diver. What matters is what you can do every single day consistently and comfortably as well. So okay, when we're training, one of the I suppose, like, the guiding principle that we all need to have when we're training in general is that at no point in time can I not enjoy this?
Mm.
Now, as you know, like you can experience an urge to breathe and not be like suffering. You can be like, oh yeah, I'm having an urge to breathe. And then it goes on and it gets worse and worse. And then you're like, oh, okay, I'm getting out of this thing.
Yeah.
So the trick is to never go to the point where you're like, oh mate, I don't like this, or this doesn't feel good. Because what happens is we're playing with our fight and flight response, right? We're playing with very ancient parts of our brain, which are designed to keep us alive, which are designed to make us want to breathe, right? So the second that we do breath holds that feel horrible, we make these really deep impressions in our brain, these really deep scars that, full stop, no human has the willpower to go beyond. So when we start making negative like impressions about breath holds and about diving, what we're doing is we're throwing rocks on the road in front of us in terms of how we're going to make the road rough in front of us in terms of our progression.
Yeah.
We're always, you think you're going forward, you're actually going backwards. So with static breath hold is the single best exercise a freediver can do to increase the period of time before they get the urge to breathe. So when it comes to carbon dioxide, there are two things we're training. We're training how comfortable am I with the urge to breathe, right? I get the urge to breathe. How good does it feel? Like, am I getting this signal, like this panicking feeling here? Or is it like, oh yeah, urge to breathe, sweet as. And obviously the more we train with CO2, the duller the panic gets. It goes away over time. Then we have, how long can I hold my breath for before I even get the urge to breathe? And different exercises train these two different things. So the best exercise a person can do here to train to increase the period of time before they get the urge to breathe is static breath hold. And so this means that when we're training static breath hold, it needs to always feel good. It needs to always like be a pleasant experience because you want to do it often. It's probably the best exercise. It's the foundation of all of your training. So you want to treat it like a lady, and don't go hard. Like the truth is that no one cares how long a person can hold their breath for, right? Like it's just, if we want to flex to each other, like, oh, I got like a 4-minute static, mate. But no one actually cares. So that's what we do. We use static breath hold to increase the period of time that we can hold our breath for without getting the urge to breathe. And we use it to train us to be relaxed over a longer period of time in a breath hold, as in like to be having contractions, to be having an urge to breathe and developing our ability to be relaxed in that environment. Then dynamic breath hold will apply a lot of that to a dive. So it'll make you more comfortable with the urge to breathe as you're swimming. It'll also increase the period of time depending on the exercise you're doing, right? But more specifically, it gets you working with the muscles you use for a dive. So it applies everything more specifically to a dive. It makes your body work anaerobically. It makes your body work without oxygen. You do a lot of swimming underwater, and the muscles in your legs get accustomed to working without oxygen. And then that means as you go diving, you're not bloody using any of the oxygen, are you? Using other things. So
I think it's a hard one to get used to too. Particularly, do you think muscle mass is adverse to good freediving?
Mate, you need those muscles. Nothing is more attractive in the freediving community than a fucking monster ass, like a bucket ass. You know what I mean? Like a rugby ass. That's what you need. And B, yeah, your body stores oxygen in muscles, right? So your muscles aren't a consumer of oxygen. Muscles are a storehouse of oxygen.
Okay.
That's how we have to be thinking of this. Muscles are good. The only issue with muscle, and this is only for deep freediving. Spearos doesn't even matter at all. For a deep freediver, you don't want to be too built around the lungs because then it affects how your body handles pressure. But if you look at all the deepest freedivers in the world, like all the deepest freedivers are trying to get monster legs, monster ass. Like that's where it's at.
Yeah, righto. I lost my train of thought there. Excuse me.
You got stuck on thinking about all the blokes and their bucket asses, didn't you?
No, I had a guy write me years ago saying basically like too much muscle mass is not good. I had a guy on here who did the longer and deeper book, and he was quite keen on training muscle mass. He didn't really make it a thing. But, there was lots of stuff in there. Like he liked hypoxic squats, and there was all sorts of craziness in there. That I really enjoyed the discussion anyway. But I wanted to ask... sorry, you go.
No, I was going to say, I don't actually know how to pronounce the name. Jap or Yap?
Yeah, Vabas, yeah.
Who's done longer and deeper. Like, he actually knows what he's talking about. Like, he's an actual exercise physiologist, and like, he actually knows what's going on in the body when we do these things. So if he says squat deep, you squat deep.
We haven't really given many caveats to safety with pool training here. I want to just cover off some of the practicalities of breath hold training. Obviously, we talked about static training just before, but we didn't really differentiate or apply the distinction of dry versus in the pool.
Sure.
Which one's more effective?
It's more effective in the pool. Everything's more effective in the water, but that's not like. I would go as far as to say a dry static is 80 to 90% as good as a wet static.
Okay.
You know, like you're not losing a whole lot. But obviously, as far as safety goes, like anything you do in the water, you have to have a competent buddy watching you. And I say that, I mean, like, I get a lot of people saying, like, oh, I went to the pool with my missus the other day. And I was like, oh, what is she going to do if you black out? And he's like, oh, you know, tell a lifeguard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. You said 80 to 90% as effective as a pool static. Apparently 84.7% of people make up their own statistics. Is that a true of you as well?
Mate, that was a guesstimation, that one.
No, I appreciate it. It's nice to have an estimate there. I did love it.
I feel like I could say, oh, it's just about as good, or it's almost as good, and then it leaves too much of what, you know. And people take your words in weird ways, don't they?
I appreciated the explanation. So with the pool training, have someone there that knows what to do in the event of a blackout, or even a samba, or any of that LMC,
definitely.
loss of motor control, all these trendy words. I love the bull sharks here in Brisbane. Fantastic. You know, specifically, really, a lot of the training was specifically designed for Spearos. So I really like Wayne's stuff and the club and the culture that's sort of created. But not everywhere has these things. Like, I know you've been a part of these groups. How can people do that themselves?
I tell you what. Okay, so let's say, all right. The first thing to do is to check your local area, to be like, hey, is there a spearing club here? Is there a training group going on? And if there's not, make one yourself. And if you don't know how to do that, send me an email and we'll line it up. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was thinking, oh shit, what am I going to tell these people if there's like literally like no one training there? Just send me an email.
Sometimes
and we'll have a chat.
Because sometimes there's issues with insurance and liabilities for swimming pools these days.
Definitely.
You know, that guy with his girlfriend that's gone along and blacked out, he's pretty much ruined it all for the rest of us. Now we require insurance or some sort of covering. In Australia, there's the AFA, but in the USA, I'm sure it's completely different. Might be able to ask some of the other guys after that.
It's totally different. It's hard because I just remembered that you've got a pretty bloody international audience. I mean, as far as getting access to pools go, that's going to be something different everywhere. But as far as, you know what we should probably do? We should probably make like a little
directory.
Or I was going to say like an info pack, like, you know, like these are the considerations you need to take in if you and your buddies are going to go and train in the pool. Keep this in mind, keep this in mind, keep this in mind. Here's a few exercises you can start with.
Love it. Let's do a PDF.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
Cool. I'll bang it on today's show notes. So it'll be noobspiro.com/Ignatius, because that's really... No, what was your other one that you did?
Iggy.
What was your other one there that you did? Scorched ball sack. So noobspiro.com/scorched ball sack.
Scalded ball sack, yeah.
We'll try and get a PDF together for guys that the considerations for, you know, freedive training for spearing at their swimming pool. That's probably pretty cool. All right, I like it. That'd be awesome. Maybe everyone could help out too if we miss some information, like in your part of the world, if it's freaky and weird.
Definitely.
We could add that information in there. All right, cool. Equalizing questions. Are we all right to move on? We're going to come back to deeper spearfishing, but can we do some EQ stuff?
Yeah, for sure we can.
I've got two here. Andrew Baker says, can everyone hands-free equalize?
Yes. Theoretically. There is nothing stopping every human from hands-free equalizing. Whether every human has the patience, willingness, and ability to learn it is a different story. Learning how to hands-free equalize is effectively learning how to raise an eyebrow, right? So it's muscle isolation with a muscle inside your mouth that you can't see and you can't feel moving. As you descend into deeper and deeper levels of pressure, as you hold your breath.
Yep.
So that's why it's a complicated thing, because we can't see what we're doing. And because we're going deeper and deeper and deeper all the time, everything in the mouth feels different. At every depth, you're going to feel something different. And depending on how you're equalizing what's going on, it's all going to feel different. So there's a lot of variables involved in a person learning how to hands-free equalize. I usually say that if a person is dedicated to learn hands-free, they will be able to pick it up in about a month's time if they practice every day.
Okay.
But
I remember back in the day when I started to get into spearfishing, and I went looking for equalizing stuff, and I came across this guy's PDF called the Frenzel Fatah thing, and it was a 40-page document, and he made things sound about as complicated as you could get. I don't know if he was academically educated. Academics seem to like making things more complicated and more difficult than they need to be. I really like your stuff. You don't worry about saying T-lock and S-trap and all this bullshit. It's just do this, do that, bang. And is hands-free like that? Like, is it like 1, 2, 3, boom, practice those 3 things?
It is exactly like that, except I can't see it. Does that make sense? Like when I'm sitting there and I look at you doing Frenzel, I can say, hey, this is what I'm looking for. Look in the mirror and see if you can see this thing moving. It's exactly like that, but it's harder to pinpoint because I can't say, hey, and can you see this moving when you're doing it? Because it's all internal.
I haven't organized this with you at all. We've got no prior arrangement. I am aware that you've got some courses that teach people specific facets of these things. You haven't asked me to do this. People have mentioned it. I also haven't negotiated anything with you with regards to a discount code for my listeners. So I'm doing this completely by the seat of my pants. Can we do that?
Yeah, done. I'll make a discount code in 20 minutes called Scalded Ballsack. I'll make it Noob Spiro. That's it. I'll make it Noob
that'd
Spiro.
Be better. I like
and we'll give them a discount, and that'll be easy. I'll send that to you after this.
Because you've got a hands-free equalizing course, I believe.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That'd be awesome. Like, I think, how long does that course take? And you're saying it's a month of conscious effort once you sort of tune it up.
Yeah, exactly. So the course is tied in with a Frenzel course. So it's like it's a basic Frenzel, an advanced Frenzel, and a hands-free course all wrapped up in one. And there's probably how many videos I've got in that bloody thing? I've probably got about 25 odd videos that go from anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. So what's that work out to be? About 3 hours, 4 hours of content.
Okay. It'd be interesting. I'm hoping I can get free access so I can just have a look.
Oh,
myself.
yeah.
That's just stuff. Because I would be like, I haven't done much freediving past 30 meters, and I'm aware that you start needing to use some other techniques. I want to get into mouthful and stuff in a sec, but Jake Cross says common issues with equalizing. One ear equalizes before the other. We kind of talked about this on our first episode. You've got some specific exercises, free videos up on YouTube about stretching the eustachian tubes. Is my memory correct?
Yep. So there's a few reasons why one ear can equalize before the other, but let's just say the solution to solve the issue is the same regardless of what the issue is. And what we need to do is make the eustachian tubes more flexible so that they require less pressure to open. I've got a video called "Why Can't I Equalize" on YouTube. And it just goes through like the list of all the things that could be going wrong and gives you the solutions to it. And then the solution to that, I call it TTS, which is tight tube syndrome, which is something I invented, like all my statistics. Nice. And then it's got the exercise to stretch them in that.
Nice. And what percentage of people suffer from this narrow eustachian tube?
I would go as far as to say anything from 25 to 35% of the population.
That's quite a lot.
That's a real statistic, by the way. That's real. Like that's what I get on my freediving courses. So that covers about 3,000 to 4,000 people as a subject group.
Are they the same people that are the feet down, feet first equalizers?
Oh, no, not yes and no. Sometimes
Oh.
the tubes can be so inflexible, you need to go feet down, but the feet down equalizers are people that have soft palate issues.
I've got a mate. I don't want to say his name on here. I love diving with him. He's a fantastic bloke. He's got a great breath hold. Like he'll
Name
do
and shame, baby.
he'll he'll do I won't name and shame. He'll do 100 meters flat out in the pool, but like he stopped wanting to go diving with a few of us because his eustachian tubes hold him back from taking on anything beyond probably 15 meters. But he's a sniper, like he's a weapon Spearo, great fitness, fantastic breath hold, just really narrow eustachian tubes, and it holds him back from spearing like he could.
Has he worked on increasing their flexibility?
He has, but I don't know if he's followed any sort of regimented program for a prolonged period of time. If you do, say you do a month, you put in a month to your eustachian tubes, like making them better and more flexible and all that. Is that a lasting adaptation, or is that something that he's going to continuously have to
do? No, mate. You put a month of work in, that's going to last you a lifetime. Obviously, let's say you have 6 months where you do nothing, it'll go back, but it'll never go back to what it was.
Okay, yeah. I really miss diving with him, but he knows that, you know, a bunch of us sort of like the deeper drops, and not that we dive deep all the time or whatever, but like
go on, mate. You tell. You're too deep for this bloke now.
No, I'm not. I'm still hopeless. I go out most of the time on the boats, and I'm still a lot of the time I'm not one of the deep guys. But it stops him from wanting to come out because I think he doesn't want to hold anyone else back, you know.
Yeah, I get you.
He prefers shallower than 10 meters, and a lot of the spearing that, you know, a lot of us enjoy, you know, probably that 15 plus sort of stuff. It just seems to be there's less Spearos there, so there's more fish.
And I think also the species kind of opens up a little bit as the stuff that you don't get, I suppose, every day, right? Because I suppose, like, if you think about what have you speared most of your life, it's probably been the shallower stuff. So it's just a bit more exciting to be like, oh, you know, we don't get this species so shallow, or maybe we'll run into this down here. Who knows?
That's true. Cool.
Maybe a red mohawk.
All right, deeper freedive spearfishing questions. It's still an equalizing question, but Kurt, who's one of the moderators on the Noob Spearo Facebook community, fantastic bloke. He says, how do you equalize when you go past that 30 meter plus mark? He says, I recently dived to 30 meters on a course. Felt like I had to equalize slightly different once I hit about the 25 meter mark. I've heard of having to bring air back into your mouth. I wasn't down there long enough to work out what was going on, but I was still able to equalize just slightly different to normal. Is there any dry training I can do for this technique?
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, so this is what tends to happen. So there's two ways to bring air from the lungs to the mouth in order to frenzel, right? Now, just so I think that sometimes when people learn about frenzel equalization, they think like, oh, you know, we're using the air in our mouth to equalize. And that's true, but the air in your mouth runs out, right? And actually, every like 3 to 5 meters, you need to replenish it. So now, like what he said is basically after 25 meters, that's when he noticed that he had to change his technique. So the biggest difference when you sort of, I suppose people are frenzeling and they go deeper than 20 or that 20 to 25 meter mark is that now you're too deep for any kind of Valsalva to work. So maybe in the past, he was just pushing a little bit with his lungs and inflating his mouth with, putting air into his mouth so he could keep frenzeling with it. Doesn't mean he was like doing a huge push, as in a huge stomach equalization, the Valsalva equalization. He's probably just nudging a bit of air up and then frenzeling it into his ears. Where now, that's not going to work, and he needs to use a reverse pack. A reverse pack is the other way that we get air from the lungs to the mouth, and it's with suction. It's like it's called a groper call or a grouper call in the States.
Grouper.
Yeah,
West America.
Yeah. you do that way too well.
Oh, it's because I used to, like, I asked, I had Spearing Magazine sponsor the podcast, and we've had a great arrangement with Jeremy. I really like him, a fantastic magazine. But I asked him to leave me some voice messages to create adverts, and then he wouldn't do it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it on your behalf, bro.
Good man.
And he told me off because I was a bit political in one, just being cheeky. And but anyway, that's neither here nor there. So the grouper mouth
call. Yeah. So you suck it up and you make this noise effectively. And you do it like, you know, ideally, and everyone can do this, right? Because doing this is a pretty standard part of speech, or use the muscles that we use to do this are pretty standard for speech, so we can all do it.
Okay. Yeah.
And what we're doing there is we're using our mouth and throat to suck air from our lungs into our mouth.
Okay.
And so every 3 to 5 meters, you need to do a groper call to replenish the air in your mouth to keep frenziling deeper. Okay. And I mean, look, I've done groper calls at 100 meters and then equalized and gone deeper. So you can do it very deep. The deeper you go, the more considerations you need to have in place. So the technique is slightly different when you're deeper than sort of 40 odd meters. Okay. But in essence, it's the same. You just suck the air up, you equalize with it. And if he's getting to the point where he's like, I just can't suck it up, it's usually because he hasn't done it frequently enough to get to that point, right? So you got to, like, if you're doing it like intermittently, you'll never be like, oh, I can't get in the air. And this is the noise that people get when they have not groper called enough. They hear this one underwater. That's the sound of stress of trying to suck it up. Okay. And if you're doing it constantly, you won't get that. But if you're not doing it enough, you get down here and you haven't done it, then it's like, it's too much pressure's built up and you just can't get it up.
Yeah, it's not a problem I have a lot, to be honest.
But also, like, if he's just gone to 30 meters like once or twice on a freediving course, he's probably not genuinely, like, you know, at peace with the world at 30 meters. Like, you know what I mean? He could be more comfortable down there, right? And so that also plays a role. It's
funny, like, as you talk, like, I start to remember some like, I have some muscle memory of some of the things that you're talking about. It's like, it's just funny to hear someone verbalize some of it. Like, I'm quite intrigued about doing a deeper equalizing thing. So it's called reverse pack mouthfill, is it? Is that right? Or
no, just reverse packing. So reverse packing is a standard part of like the normal frenzel technique. Okay. It's the way that we get air from the lungs to the mouth to frenzel. Most people are already,
Oh, I lost your audio there for a sec.
Oh, you're back. Sorry, someone was calling me.
Oh.
Most people do it naturally. Without even knowing that they're doing it. But as we go deeper, we tend to have to be a bit more active about it because the pressure increases and it can't just be this little thing we're doing. It has to be something very specific and controlled.
And you've got to do it regularly. Otherwise you get desperate and make the call of the dying dolphin.
Mate, that's going to stick, eh? I'm going to use that. Point.
Yeah. Joe Pedro, he says, can you share your wisdom on chin tuck? Actually, let me read out a series of questions here because that's kind of related. Joe says, can you share your wisdom on chin tuck, dive, and what injuries can be caused by looking out in front of you, like neck extension, typical spearfishing form compared to proper dive form, the little things that cause nightmares due to a lack of under pressure knowledge, basically. Mackenzie says, I've got a similar question to Joe. Once you start going over 30 to 40 meters, how long does it take your body to acclimatize to the new depths? If you've done all your stretches and relaxing on the top perfectly, what are some of the little things like neck movements that we should be careful of, and how long, how many dives to depth until you can start to move your head a little more comfortably? So they're kind of related.
Yeah.
But lots of questions. It's just a huge...
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's probably a bit... I can't give an answer for some of those questions. Like, as in, hey, you know, do 3 dives to 20 meters, and then you should be okay to move your neck around a bit more. Do 5 dives to 30 meters, and then you should, you know, like that isn't possible to give that answer. And everyone's going to have a different level of flexibility of their bloody trachea and and the muscles around their lungs. And like we all are going to have different abilities here that people are kind of just going to have to work out for themselves. And for the most part, not work it out, as in like just do the conservative thing and not ever run the risk of doing it. But so the chin tuck. The chin tuck is interesting because on a freediving course and like kind of jazz, everyone's always teaching like, tuck your chin in and, you know, don't look ahead and la-di-da. And when I teach Spearos to dive, I don't really talk too much about I talk a little bit about obviously the safety of that, but the bigger element is actually like, you know, keep a streamlined body to cut through the positive buoyancy. And then once you're deeper than, you know, anything, it depends how deep you're diving, right? Once you're through the positive buoyancy and you start to become neutral and negatively buoyant, open up, look around, because, you know, you're hunting.
Yeah.
You need 100%. You know, right? Like you need to know where you go. You need to know what you're doing. So the chin tuck for me is most appropriate in spearfishing as a performance tool to get through positive buoyancy. And then if you're going if you're doing some deep spearfishing, like 20 meters and below, then it becomes a consideration for safety. And in that regard, I would say that everyone is different. Everyone will develop flexibility, and everyone will adapt to pressure in different time frames over a different number of dives. What I usually recommend is for people to, like when they're doing deeper dive spearing, is to, instead of like getting down the bottom and going like, whoa, hey, how you going, is to move their torso with their body, if that makes sense. Yeah. You can still get a pretty full range of motion just by like, swiveling your head around a little bit. And if you need to look up like this, just lift your whole body up, as opposed to
like just because it's an audio show, what you're sort of demonstrating to me is you look like one of those inflatable toys with the weight on the bottom, and the kids just punch them and the whole thing moves over.
Yes. Yeah, so nice. bend back like keep the body straight and bend back from the entire torso, as opposed to sticking the neck out and stretching the neck and risking hurting your trachea and lungs. Just move your whole chest back, or like pivot from the hips so that your whole body is moving around to see what's going on. And
I remember listening to the Freedive Cafe podcast, and Donnie's pretty passionate about like some of the, because I think in the freediving community, like the deeper freediving community, like it's like a lot of people just assume it's a matter of when, not if, with lung and trachea squeeze. And
yeah, sometimes.
And so what you're saying is a conservative approach as well, but it's like, I don't know. How do you know when you're on the edge?
You don't. That's the issue. You don't have nerve endings in this part of your body. You'll come to the surface, you'll cough up blood. And that's either your throat bleeding or your trachea bleeding or your lungs bleeding. And all of them are bad. So you desperately want to avoid that kind of an injury. It can have a lasting effect on your diving.
So for guys wanting to dive a bit deeper, I mean, do you just practice adopting better body language to minimize your chance, even when you're starting to hunt shallower?
I mean, if your intention is to spear deeper, then that's a good approach, I think. But I suppose I don't personally like teaching people techniques that are really good for like what I would think like 1% spearing. Yeah, exactly. Spearing 20 meters and below it's a very small number of people that actually do that. So I just teach everything that's appropriate to spear anything from 0 to 15 to 20-ish, and then deeper than that, then we have a chat about different things. That's the kind of mode that I like to go for.
Cool. I've had a mate that had it, and he spent 4 months out of the water, went back, got it again, and he wasn't even diving deep, maybe 21, 22 meters. And then so he had a 6-month break, and then he went back out. And I don't think he's ever really been the same, and his confidence hasn't come back at depth either.
Mate, 100%. Like this is what it can have. It can make you a pretty much a non-diver having these lung injuries. So you really want to avoid it. And it's fairly easy to avoid, right? You just don't really open the body up at depth. If you're going to move around with the entire torso. And I suppose before we were talking about like depth adaptation, go down the line, dive to 20 meters. Doesn't mean you can spear at 20 meters. Bridging the gap between your deepest depth and your spearing depth, that's a process of years, not necessarily, hitting a number on a line. That's a very different story.
Nice. Mackenzie had some more questions that was sort of aligned to this adaptation idea. He remembers you talking about how you could come back after a month with no training and pretty much start from where you'd left off. Obviously, that's not probably the same for all, like depth, but in terms of performance in a dynamic environment, maybe it's the same. Can you talk to this?
Yeah, so what we're talking about here is just a long-term adaptation in the body that you get after years. You know what I mean? Like I remember maybe earlier in my career when I'd train really intensively, I'd have a month or two off, I'd come back and I'd feel like shit. And it'd take me maybe like a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to get back into good form. And then as the years go on and you just keep training, keep getting better, your body just learns and it just stays. The adaptations become more permanent. And now, for example, at the start of this year, I was living in the Philippines, going nuts. I'm just going to quickly get my little charger for the phone. I was living in the Philippines, going nuts, training full time. Then this bloody virus came around. Someone eats a bat, and I'm back in Australia. A pangolin. A pangolin.
whatever it was.
Someone made love to a pangolin.
Yeah.
If you know the South Park episode I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
Oh, mate, you can get onto it. I would have paid you for some of the What South Park, no?
No, sometimes it's more just time.
Yeah, for sure.
Opportunity cost, like.
Yep, definitely.
How do I want to spend it? So.
Yep.
South Park ranks fairly low these days.
Well, anyway, they have a whole COVID episode about someone fucking a pangolin.
Sounds like it's in line with my research anyway. So
yes.
we were talking about adaptation and the Chinese thing disrupted you.
Oh, yes. So anyway, then I get back home, I keep training in the pool, and then I kind of realized, at the start when COVID was going on, I think we all had the impression that, after a few months, everything will go back to normal. And then we all made the realization that, in 3 to 5 years, everything will go back to normal. So when I made that realization, I was like, oh, shit, I might just relax and, enjoy my life a little bit now. And and I did that for a few months and just didn't train. And then I went and did a pool session. And I did and it was a hard pull session, and I did the exact same times in the exercise that I was doing when I was at my absolute peak. So I think the longer you've been at it, the longer you hold on to it. And, that's probably about all I need to say.
All good.
Yeah. The longer you've been training, the longer you hold on to it, the shorter you've been training, maybe the more you'll need to, spend ramping it back up.
Is that the same for depth as well? You've done 100 meters. If you went back out and you had opportunity to do like Dean's Blue Hole or one of these other famous locations, you could. How long would it take you to start getting back and maybe even replicating or?
Oh, look, it would take me 2 to 3 weeks to reach probably PB again, but that's probably going a bit fast. If that makes sense. Yeah. You probably wouldn't want to go that fast. If you want to have the luxury to go slower, but in terms of what my body could do, 2 or 3 weeks, I could comfortably be back there. To be honest, I could probably be back there faster. It just feel like ass. I just wouldn't feel good doing it.
Thomas Rapard had some similar questions to what we've been talking about, adaptation to depth. I'm not going to give you his question because I feel like we've given it a real good coverage, but thanks for your question.
Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, but shout out to Tom. Rob says, moving on to lighter things, Adam, when is Adam having an underwater UFC rematch with Adam?
Mate, Adam Sellers is scared for round 3. Yeah. I just want to put that one out there. Round 1, he took. Round 2 was all me. Yeah. And word on the street is that he's actually terrified for round 3 of that.
Yeah. It reminded me... you reminded me of a young Captain America, and he definitely had that Thor sort of vibe going. I feel like you should take a hammer down, do a Marvel sort of underwater recreation of it.
We should totally do that.
For anyone not familiar with this, they've filmed a funny sort of fight scene on the bottom of the sea floor. It's pretty good to watch. Craig McNiven, he has a lot to do with the Twig Gold Coast Freedivers. He says, he had it's a different sort of question. He said, what are the hurdles of running a freediving business? Cash flow, cancellations, COVID, marketing, customer retention. Is it like a dream to do what you love for an income every day? Could you get the business to a point where it could be run without you?
All right, so let's unpack this. It's really easy.
Can we reverse pack it?
Oh, I see what you did.
Sorry, that was a dad joke.
Yeah, we're all about dad jokes here, aren't we? It's really easy to make a living as a freediving instructor in Australia. Right? This is very different to other parts of the world. Other parts of the world, there's a little bit less demand. I really can't speak for most parts of the world, to be absolutely honest with you. But in Australia, many people take a freediving instructor course, and next week they are full-time freediving instructors. That's just the level of demand that we have in Australia, and that's just I suppose where the industry is at the moment, as far as supply and demand. How long will it take you until you can leave the business alone? I would probably go as far as to say a reasonably long period of time, like maybe 3 to 5 years. It's not going to be the kind of business that you just set up and immediately it's just running itself and you employ someone else. for the most part, how many freediving instructors live in your bloody area, right? You gotta have someone like me train some prick up, and then you gotta make sure they're doing your thing, and you know what I mean. It's like, if there's no freediving instructor in your area and you're considering taking a freediving instructor course to then make a business, I would go as far as to say it'll be a while before there's another freediving instructor in your area that you can employ to also run things while you hang out. But also then, freediving instruction, you have to become quite big in order to justify someone else's wage, and it still make enough money for you to make a living. So I would say you probably need to be teaching. Or how much bloody money do you want to earn, right? If you want to earn 50 grand a year and live a simple, easy life, easy. You want to earn 100 grand a year, you'll be busier, right? You'll be hustling a little bit more. If you want to employ someone else and earn 100 grand a year, you can see where I'm going with this thing. But for the most part, there's a lot of money to make in freediving. It's a fairly easy industry to crack and get into, not enough people are doing it.
You know those franchises, like they have like Ed's lawn mowing and then Ed's pet grooming. Have you ever thought about doing that? Adam's freediving instructors,
freediving.
Just creating your own body. I know you're a emulsion of Jedi.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, but Molchanov don't have any freediving centers, right? Like they're an education system.
Yeah.
I have thought about that. I have thought about setting up franchises and things like that. If anyone wants a Adam Stone franchise. No, I'm actually about to launch a brand separate to my name that has the ability to do that. Now, in that regard,
sorry, have I chucked you in the secret sauce end of things?
Nah, not at all, not at all. You're probably aware that I don't really have many secrets. I've got a huge mouth, and things just fly out of it. So I'm gonna be setting up a dive center soon, and then hopefully we can set that dive center up in multiple locations. Whether we have a franchising model or whether I set them up myself and have other people run them and they get paid a salary, la-di-da. Who knows? It probably depends on the person, right? Like, I don't know. You probably need to know someone pretty well before you let them franchise your business.
100%, yeah. I was going to say to you, like, it's kind of related to all of the stuff we've talked about today. It was so. Earlier we were talking about training that little voice in your head, like that's to me what a freediving instructor helps you do. So it seems to be like you need to find a freediving instructor that can help you train your voice to do what you've got to do in order to do it. Obviously, there's a lot of the technical sides of things as well.
Yes.
I remember you talking about how you choose your freediving instructor is very dependent on basically how your personalities work and interact.
Totally. Yeah. Oh, mate. Obviously, I have a lot of technical freediving knowledge, but if you don't like me, you're not going to learn anything from me, or you're not going to want to, or you know what I mean. Like, I
think only 2.13% of people don't like you, Adam.
Oh, I don't know. I think I'm a bit of a wacky bloke, if that makes sense. And some people just think I'm a bit weird, and that's okay. You know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, heaps of people don't like me too, but they like all the guests that I have on the show, so thankfully they come back. No, it's good. Well, cool. So that was cool to have sort of some business type related discussions, because I think
we can go into it more. I'm just not sure how many of your listeners will be genuinely interested in the monetary breakdown.
I think one temptation that everyone has when they're passionate about a specific thing, whether it's spearfishing or freediving or whatever it is, you start to entertain the idea of turning your passion into a legitimate income, so you can start doing more of what you love every day. And you're very much a person that does that. And I think the Noob Spirit community questions are reflective of that. A lot of people, they consider it, whether it's commercial diving or whether it's freediving instruction. It's good to have that talk. So it was cool.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, in saying all that, here is another thing you want to consider before making freediving instruction or spearfishing instruction your full-time employment or getting into the industry. Do you love freediving? Do you love spearfishing? Or do you love teaching?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Right? Because your job is not spearing and diving. Your job is teaching. And if you don't love teaching, you're going to get over it real fast. You've got to love it all. Otherwise, it's just not for you. And that's totally fine.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, no, it raises some more philosophical questions that I might ask you at another time. Jason Harris says, not strictly diet related, but does Adam have any food items he avoids when leading up to a dive day to keep the sinus systems clean? I had we talked about Yap for Bass earlier. He dug through the research and he couldn't find any correlation between dairy and mucus production. Like he could find. So it's just this old freediving anecdote that's been passed around, but it doesn't necessarily have much truth to it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, that is exactly the scenario. So I'll tell you what increases mucus production is lactose intolerance.
Right? Yeah.
So there's enough of the population. In fact, I'm sure we can find a statistic for this that are actually, to some greater or lesser extent, lactose intolerant, even if they don't bloody know it, right? These are the people that, have a glass of milk and they get all snotty. If you don't have a lactose intolerance, you can do whatever the hell you like. I'm like smashing all kinds of dairy and loving it. But I don't have tricky sinuses and I don't have a lactose intolerance. But as far as foods to avoid, I think, to be absolutely honest with you, the only real one that I avoid is alcohol. So if I'm getting ready for a big dive, I don't want to dehydrate my body. I don't want to fatigue my body with drinking alcohol. Everything else just goes like, go nuts, eat all the chocolate. You'll be right.
I remember reading up about this lactose thing. And one of the arguments that, because there's this people that are obsessed with anti-dairy, anti-meat, right? The anti-dairy people, they're
called vegans.
Yeah, but it's ideological and it's But anyway, they think that that their argument is that infants have these enzymes or these digestive capabilities in their body when they're infants to digest their mother's milk. However, as you grow older and your stomach starts to get more complicated, that's when you start adding solid food and blah, 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 blah. And then you taper off your intake of lactose-related food. And some people say that as an adult, we lack that enzyme completely. And that's really what lactose intolerance is.
Well, that's what I've looked into as well. Like, obviously, the same thing has come up in sort of my reading. My response to that is that I don't have enzymes and the ability for lots of the foods and things that I do and things that I eat, but I still do it because it's good. You know what I mean? Like it's
yeah.
Lots of things that go in my mouth should not go in my mouth.
And the human body's adaptive too. Like a lot of the arguments is around a lot of intolerances are like, it's because you maybe missed out on some food groups when you were young. I'm not saying that there's not legitimate ones and stuff like that.
Totally.
But I think we can adapt and we can, like if you eat shit food, your body becomes hungry for shit food, apparently. And,
definitely.
So, yeah, I don't know. It's maybe it's another one of these self-fulfilled prophecies too. Like if you think you're going to get blocked up when you drink milk, then you're going to get blocked up. I don't know.
Could be. I don't know. I just think that life's a very short thing and you need to do the things that make you happy. And not be too caught up in, some people love the regime, don't they? Some people love the strict structure. I'm not a structured kind of person, and if I'm too strict with myself, I'll go nuts. I'll just blow out. If I'm super regimented with my diet, like all of a sudden I'll wake up in the morning surrounded by just packets of chips and lollies, and I look like a person that wakes up in a crime scene. Like, what have I done?
I'm not very. I have become increasingly regimented as I've got older, and as I've got older, I've appreciated having a lot of disciplines in areas of my life, particularly where I think I fall over. Because I've been seriously overweight before. I'm still overweight, so applying a level of discipline and strategy to the way I plan my food and eating is. I just kind of have to do it. Otherwise,
for sure.
Yeah. Otherwise, it gets out of control. So, but yeah. But you got to have fun, don't you? It's a good point. Nicholas Moore, I can't. Nicholas Morse Codes is his name on Instagram. He says, he says, how many wetsuits does he own? 10 at least. Where does he keep them?
Yeah, shit. All right, get ready. Oh, they're not going to see the video for this, are they?
Nah.
Anyway,
I'll describe it. I'll describe what I see.
All right, so you're in my garage right now. I've probably got about between 20 and 30 wetsuits that have just accumulated over the years.
Where else would you?
They're all on the floor here.
Oh, that's disgraceful.
Yeah, look, that's a pile of monofins, right? Yeah, we got 1, 2, 3 monofins there. Oh, there's a spear gun sitting underneath a bifin. There's another monofin. Is that a pile? Is that a pile of carbon bifins over there?
Your garage looks like a mad woman's shit.
Mate, 100%. Yeah, that's where they all are. They sit on the floor of my garage. Some of them are hung up. Like my competition suits that I need to kind of keep nice, they're all hung up nicely and washed and all that kind of jazz. Everything else is just in the heap. I
was going to send you a Noob Spearo shirt, but I don't want it to end up as a rag on the floor of your
garage.
Oh,
mate, give me the shirt. You know I want the shirt.
Oh, good. I had some random questions here at the end, as they've become increasingly random. I'm titling this part of the show, "When is Adam coming to my part of the world?" Scuba Steve says, will he do a freediving course in Bateman's Bay in the future? Bard Antonson says, first of all, thank you for the podcast. Love it. Started freediving 2 years ago. He says, is there any chance I'll see him in the land of the big halibuts in Norway? Our coast is amazing. Yeah. I'm just saying. An event with Adam in Norway would be epic. And Mansour HSD says, when will he come to Lakshadweep, which is in India?
All right, well, let's start from the top. Bateman's Bay. I'm going to be doing a course in Jervis Bay on the 6th and 7th of February. I'll be there also in Jervis Bay for 2 weeks from the end of February to the start of March. There's a good hiccup. As far as the other places, mate, get the world to open up again and I'll be there. Okay, so in general, if you do ever want to do anything with me, just send me an email. And what we do is we have a little spreadsheet of a location and people who were interested in learning how to freedive. And when we get enough people in that area to make the trip worthwhile, then we just run the trip. So if you're ever interested in learning from me or learning with me or just bloody doing anything, flick me an email. I'm trying to think what's the best email to give you. We'll do the one that I don't answer, that my beautiful office manager answers, because she's a lot more organized than I am and actually gets shit done.
What's the email?
It is deepweekfreediving@gmail.com.
Deepweekfreediving@gmail.com. I'll link that up in today's show notes as well. So that'd be awesome. Cool. I'm coming to do my instructors with you at some stage in the very near future.
I know.
We're to get it done.
Did you? I felt like some of the little depth things I was sliding in there for you as well.
You were. They were aimed right at my heart, and I was thinking, to myself, I've got to get past 20 before I can worry about 40. No, it'll be good. I was meant to do a course with Adam Stern and Eckhart Benkenstein in the Kilsby Sinkhole Retreat 3 days ago, but due to the Brisbane lockdown situation with coronavirus, it stopped me from going. But that's definitely on the cards this year. I want to get it done. Just get it all sorted. So
that place is out of this world.
Yeah, it looks sick. Like you've got a really good video there on your YouTube channel, eh?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And we also, when I was there last, I did a lot of networking when I was down there because there are sinkholes all over the shop, right? So I basically found a farmer that has a 40-meter deep sinkhole, and he was willing to let us go and use it and train it. So now we've got access to more and more depth.
So, cool, because that was the problem with the Kilsby one. It's like 26 or 27 meters, so you can't really do your instructors there, eh?
Yeah, but I spent a few weeks down there when I was there last, just for this purpose, just to hunt, basically go sinkhole hunting.
Nice.
So yeah.
Sick. Did you dive in there?
Oh yeah, it's unreal.
Sick. Well, I'm pencil man for whatever you got going. I'm coming.
Well, we might even run an instructor course in the sinkhole because it's just easy. You know what I mean? It's just easy access, easy conditions. Yeah. Why not?
Do you? I know Eckhart and Adam Sellers were doing. They use accommodation in the old jail there. And
Mount
same
Gambier. Thing.
Ah, cool,
Yep.
cool.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
epic.
Cool. I'm really, yeah, I was really looking forward to this trip, and I've had one penciled in with you as well, so it'll have to happen. Right now, though, I want to unmute all of the Patron listeners who have joined us for this call, and let them pepper you with questions as well. Are you good with that?
Yeah, I'm ready for the peppering.
All right. Okay, here we go. So I'm unmuting everyone. So jump in, guys, and ask your questions if you've got one.
I got one for Adam.
All right, here we go. Fire away.
Yeah, it's Greg. Hey, hi Adam. I'm 62. I started diving probably about 6 years ago. Cool. So I'm relatively new to it, but I'm just kind of wondering what your experience is with some of the older divers in terms of, their ability to gain depth, the quickness at which they do that, any more proneness to injury, any techniques or things that you see in terms of having older divers and kind of when do they hit walls in terms of age and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, I tell you what, my primary training buddy, his name is Mike Board. He's the UK record holder. He dives to 113 meters, so he goes deeper than I do. I think he's going to be 58 this year. Obviously you probably know that the first man to dive to 100 meters was 65 years old when he did it. I think the constraints that apply to older divers are probably more constraints on your muscles and joints rather than anything specific to breath hold, if that makes sense. Now, the other thing you probably want to keep in mind is that like anything, and this is probably more lifestyle factors, but just like anything that places stress on the body, it places stress on the heart and things like that, right? So you go diving and, you're placing stress a little bit on your cardiovascular system in the same way that you'd place stress on it if you went for a brisk walk or a little jog or something like that. So as long as you have like a reasonable amount of fitness that you can handle that kind of stress being placed on the body, like a brisk walk or a little jog, you shouldn't have any issues with that party body. And most of the issues you'll have will be like, am I going to get any kind of injuries, like loading my gun? Am I going to put my shoulder out? I'm going to hurt my, what I'm trying to say, right? Like where it's that, those are probably the biggest considerations to take on board, I suppose, as an older diver. It's more like just general health rather than diving specific, because as far as things go diving specific, there should be no real impediment.
Cool. Thank you.
Cool. Easy.
Whereabouts are you? Again, Greg, you do a lot of your diving in Baja, but you're living up in Lake Tahoe. Is that right?
Yeah, I do. I do pretty much 90% of my diving and spearfishing is in Baja, but I do some line diving and stuff in Hawaii. I'm actually going to, which is one of the second question, I'm going to Dahab, Egypt in and I'll be there for all of March on a mentorship program with Harry Chamas. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, Harry's a legend.
Yeah, and so I don't want to bogart all the questions, but since this is the second one that I had, in terms of how do you recommend making the most out of a month like that?
I tell you what, knowing Harry,
have you been to Dahab, and can you tell me?
Yeah, I lived in Dahab for 2 years.
Okay.
Dahab's amazing. What I can tell you about it is that when you're not freediving, there is nothing to do. All right. You go to Dahab and you run the risk of getting sick, like just bacteria stuff in your food. So speak to Harry and don't be conservative with the restaurants you go to. There'll be I haven't been there for a few years, but there'll be about 3, 4, or 5 restaurants that are clean. Only eat there or prepare your own food. If you're preparing your own food, make sure you wash everything. It's very classic that someone goes to Dahab and spends half of their time dealing with diarrhea. I had amoebic dysentery when I was there at one stage. So just really be pedantic with your food, because that will be the thing that can wipe you out and can waste your time there. But otherwise, knowing Harry, your time there is going to be chock-a-block. Like you're going to be full, and it's going to be like really structured and broken up really nicely. I don't imagine Harry's going to have you just sitting around twiddling your thumbs going, oh, what am I going to do today? He's going to have everything structured so you get the most out of your time there and the most out of your training. So I would just trust Harry on that. and then make sure you don't get sick.
Amoebic dysentery is when the poo stops coming out of your bum and it actually starts coming out of your ears and your eyes.
Yeah. The other thing is make sure you check out the Ras Mohammed Marine Park if you're there. And I think Mount Sinai is also really cool. It's a bit of a hike up there, and if you have time for that, go check out Mount Sinai. I don't know if you've ever spent much time in the desert. I'd never spent any time in the desert before I went to Dahab. And we did quite a few nights. We'd just go out there and go camping in the desert, and it was quite an experience. Like, it's beautiful. I never quite experienced anything quite like being out in this, like, just middle of the bloody desert, and the stars are all out. Like, it's a really cool place.
I bet. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. You're gonna love it.
Hey Adam, when people do these like extended courses and stuff,
yeah,
do you like it if they pair it with like another physical discipline or like another activity that's kind of meaningful, or should it stay fairly freedive centric to get the most out of it?
You should probably stay fairly freedive centric. I mean, the more energy you put into something else, the more you'll be taking away from your freediving. Because the freediving, especially for like these longer periods of time, he's going to be going to some pretty, I imagine, a month's training. He's going to be going to some pretty reasonable depths. If he's not training, he'll need to be recovering from his training. But it's up to you. It's all about what, you get out, what you put in, right? So totally up to them.
I've got Captain Dan Walsh up there too. Welcome, Dan. I didn't even see you there before, mate. Did you have any questions for Adam?
Actually, I have a couple things. First, some comments from listening. You're absolutely right. First, I'm a big fan. I love all your videos.
Thank you.
Your camping trips and all that. You're absolutely right about teaching. I've been a scuba instructor since 1972. And you pretty much can write off diving at that point because you're teaching all the time. But I wanted to comment, and hopefully Isaac can hear this. I think it was his buddy that was having problems with his eustachian tubes or something like that. I had, after all the years of diving and running dive boats and all that, I've had a problem with my left eustachian tube. And I researched, I was almost ready to go to Germany to have a procedure done where they put a catheter in and they expand down here in the cartilage area. Well, they do it in Los Angeles. And so that's what I did. And it has helped tremendously. And so it was not that expensive. It didn't hurt. But I really enjoyed getting that done. And for the gentleman that says he's old and all that stuff and down there, I'm going to be 70 in May. Okay. So here's what I've discovered. Okay. So you just buy better equipment. Like I went and bought some big ass carbon fiber fins because I've had two knee replacement surgeries over the past 2 years. And then for my spear gun, I bought those little assist things, little hook and the little rubber bits. So you just get, you don't, what's it? You work harder, not smarter, or dive smarter, not harder. That's what I do. So that's what I have to say, but I'm enjoying it. And Isaac, thanks. I really enjoy this stuff.
Cool. Brian, Duncan, Nick, Stu, did you guys have any questions for Adam? Otherwise, I'm going to pepper him with a couple more requests and then we'll head on out. But
yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've got a. Nope. I'll go after you.
Okay, sure. All right. Hey, it's Stu Howard here. How you going?
G'day, Stu.
Good, mate.
Hey, I guess just one question I have is I find after a day spearing or even half a day spearing, I'm just absolutely rooted.
Yeah.
Like super tired and just absolutely hopeless for the rest of the day. Do you have any tips for, like, I don't know, is it for mitigating that somehow?
For becoming unrooted, I think.
Yeah, unrooted.
Let's do our best to unroot Stu. So Stu, you're experiencing two different types of fatigue here, or there's two different things that are really causing the fatigue. So can I just ask, do you eat anything before you go diving, and do you make sure you stay hydrated throughout the day?
Yeah, I do my best. I I try to have a good feed of porridge in the morning before I go out, and I just try and smash as much water as I can during the dive.
Oh, okay. So you're doing everything you can do there, which is great. I would go as far as putting some electrolytes in your water if you can as well. That's always helpful. But fatigue from diving is just a factor. Like, it's just a thing that's going to happen. So one thing that we have to, I suppose, like think about is, let's say you go spearing for like, how long do we all go spearing for? We get in the water. You're in the water for like anything from 2 to 4 hours on average, right? Like it's a good period
8
of time
hours.
in water.
8 hours. Can't get enough.
And don't forget, there's the drive there and the drive
Yeah.
back.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, it's the
So
mission. Yeah.
yeah. So
Listening to the Noob Sparrow podcast, though, so that gives you energy.
That's true. Fires you up. When else in your life do you go and do 4 to 8 hours of exercise?
Sure.
Just
Right,
in the bedroom.
Are you sure? Are you sure it's not 4 to 8 minutes? Because
I got it wrong.
oh, mate. My wife's pregnant right now, and I swear this child was conceived in 15 seconds. You know, that's what it's like after you have one baby.
That's all it takes.
Way to go,
get the job done, and you get out of there. So you've got general fatigue from, like, you know, being in the water for a long period of time, exercising for a long period of time, and then you're also going to have nitrogen loading. And maybe the captain can actually give us a bit more, some more pointed info on this as well. But when we're freediving, all that time spent underwater, we're building up nitrogen in our system, and that's a lot of work for the body to get rid of that nitrogen. Having excess nitrogen in your body is extremely fatiguing. So it happens with scuba diving, it happens with free diving, it happens with spearing. The second you immerse yourself under that water, you're going to build up some nitrogen, and then that's going to be work for the body to get the nitrogen out of the body. So there's going to be like an extra element of fatigue that's being placed upon you.
I think Stu's just muted himself accidentally there.
Has he?
Yeah.
You know, thanks. Yeah, that's great.
All right, cool.
Cool.
Awesome. Do you use the Aqualite? I got sent another bunch of stuff the other day from some guys in WA. Actually, it's bloody good. Like it's got the magnesium and the electrolytes in it.
Yep.
Cool. Have you got a go-to for when you do your a full day teaching?
Oh, mate, whatever's in Woolies. You know what I mean? Whatever's on the shelf.
Nice. Duncan, aka Dunky Poo, the spear gun geek. He had a question for you as well, I believe.
Yeah, thanks for that, Shrek. It's kind of two questions, but they're kind of combined. So do you do one groper call, or do you do multiple ones all the way down? I haven't heard of anybody doing them multiple times. Just
okay.
I've always thought and gone on the basis that you do one big one kind of relatively early on to kind of prep you up for when you start getting much deeper. But that's kind of much more on the really deep stuff going down towards 80, 100 meters.
Okay, so what you're describing, the one big groper call, that's not a groper call. So that's a mouth fill, and that's a totally different style of equalization. And we move air from the lungs into the mouth by pushing with the respiratory muscles to fill up the mouth. We don't create suction to do that.
Right.
So that's mouth fill equalization, which just put that in a totally separate category of equalization than anything else. For frenzel equalization, we're doing constant groper calling, so constant reverse packs. So basically what I say is after 20 meters, before every single equalization you do a reverse pack. So you reverse pack, equalize, reverse pack, equalize, reverse pack, equalize after 20 meters.
Cool, that makes more sense.
Yeah, easy.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, that came from Dave Mullins. So he was talking about when he does it at like 35 before he goes to 100.
Oh, look, Dave Mullins does 125 bloody odd meters. That man is not human, and but he's talking about doing mouthful equalization.
No, I've been spearfishing with him when he's like, oh, I'll just pop over to this rock and try and find some crayfish at 55 meters.
Right?
And you're like, what is wrong with you?
Apparently,
much is wrong with him.
You've got to remember, though, Adam, he's a Kiwi, so superior genetics come into it as well.
It's a big part of it, yeah.
Very true. I'm just going to hold my tongue.
Well, I think there's 3 Kiwis on the call, so I can't normally do this. I think we might have 3. We've got three Yanks, 3 Aussies, maybe, and 3 Kiwis.
Well, yeah, you're usually outnumbered.
I am.
Just the last second part of my question was, so what's the deepest that you can do on a residual dive?
What do you mean by residual dive?
So based on residual volume without having to do your groper calls or a mouthful. Do you have a particular point that you...
Breathing all the way out and diving, is that the question?
No, not exhale diving. But so without if you didn't do the groper calling or even just minor groper calling, but not the mouth fill, what's your kind of maximum depth that you can go to?
So,
out of curiosity.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. So the maximum depth that any human will be able to go to without doing some form of a groper call will be the depth of a Valsalva equalization. So you're looking at about 20 to 25 meters.
Okay.
That's but so just so you know, like doing a groper call is it's an essential and standard part of frenzel equalization. Does that make sense? So it's not like a new different thing. It's the part of the technique.
Right. Yep.
So every time we go down to 30, 40, 50, 60, whatever meters, if we're not using a mouthfill and we're using frenzel, it's just reverse pack, equalize, reverse pack, equalize, reverse pack, equalize.
Yep. Cool.
Awesome. While we round out, there might be a one or two more questions left from the patrons, but we mentioned some courses today. Where can guys find that, Adam? And obviously you're going to put together this Noob Spearo code.
Yeah, Noob Spearo code. Yeah. So the website is freedivingfamily.com. www.freedivingfamily.com. That's like where I have my courses. It's a digital freediving manual with like a video manual.
Cool.
So
and you're going to give Noob Spearo listeners, I think you said like 90% off or something crazy?
Oh, I'm fairly certain it was 40% off or something like that.
Really? Oh, that's,
yeah. Why not?
hectic.
Why not?
No, well, I'm just whatever you can do for the listeners would be fantastic.
Oh, bro, you know that like my MO since being in the freediving industry has always been about how to get as much information to as many people as possible, right? Like we were talking earlier about I don't know, everything we were talking earlier about in terms of like we were talking about putting together a package, like how people. Like, how do we know how to go to the pool and train and things like that? Like, I just feel like the more knowledge that people have, the safer the community is and the better the community is. So like, just
100% on the same page as you. I think one thing, like I think from you too, is because you've got a purpose to what you're doing, like your mission sort of guided. I think that seems to be why you're so energetic all the time as well, because it's all in line with what you're trying to achieve. So
I suppose, you wake up in the morning and you think, hey, I really like this thing that I'm doing and I really believe in it. I suppose that gives you a bit of oomph.
Yeah, 100%, man. No, I love it. And it's always good talking with you, Adam. So anytime you want to come back on the Noob Spearo podcast, you're always welcome, man. I wanted to give the patrons one last chance. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to say or ask Adam before we head on out?
No, just thank you for your time. Thank you for your videos. They're awesome.
Oh, mate, pleasure.
Cool. Oh, good. Well, thanks for all the Noob Spearo community, Adam. Awesome to connect with you. People can come and find you, Adam Freediver, everywhere. Adam Stern, however they search for you. Today's show notes.
It'll all work.
Today's show notes, I think I'm going to make them noobspearo.com. There'll be a few there. I think, what do we agree on?
Scalded ball sack.
Scalded ball sack.
Yeah, but there'll be a few things.
Maybe just Adam Freediver as well would be good. A simple one. But scalded ball sack's quite a long URL to type out. But come to noobspearo.com. Anyway, in the show notes, I'll have videos, links, the courses that Adam's mentioned, and along with the discount code and all the other sponsors of the Noob Spearo podcast as well. So cheers, Adam.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, good. I'm turning off my recording, gentlemen.